Welcome to the Elets Innovation Talk. Today we are privileged to have Maheswaran S, Country Manager South Asia Varonis Systems. Maheswaran serves as Country Manager for South Asia at Varonis and is responsible for expanding the business in one of the organization's key APAC markets. He is an information security industry veteran with over 2 decades of experience across a range of security technologies and processes. A technologist at heart, Maheshwaran has a real ability to understand the commercial and operational requirements of businesses across a wide range of vertical markets. He has a wealth of experience supporting the deployment of key data protection projects in several leading enterprises across APAC. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Nidhi. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah. So to start with, in the context of evolving cyber threats, how can enterprises, according to you, accurately identify where their sensitive data resides across different platforms and what steps can they take to minimize unnecessary exposure?
I think I really like the way you correlating cyber threats to data, Nidhi, because while the vectors that hackers use to get into an organization can be different, the motive is always to go after the data. And it's important for organizations to have enough controls around data to protect it. And the most important things for organizations to control data is to identify data accurately, especially with
Correct, yes.
organizations embracing digitization, data residing in different data stores on-prem, on cloud. It's very critical for organizations to leverage technologies to accurately identify data. And I think once they do that, they then know what is their attack surface around maybe data breaches or data exfiltration or data corruption. And once organizations get this visibility, then the most important thing is to see whether this information is overexposed. We normally see when we perform assessments, access to information is being given to people, too many people on too many systems, because organizations do not monitor file access or information access permissions that are typically assigned for users. Just to give you an example, on day one, an employee of a 10,000 plus user organization gets access to 17 million files. This is as per our analysis from different risk
Okay.
assessments that we did. But for the person to perform the day-to-day job, he or she needs access to maybe a few thousand files. But just because of the way organizations give access to information for people, we see a lot of information being overexposed, and this we call it as blast radius. Because any one user becoming rogue, or if a hacker gets hold of somebody's user credential, all this information is at risk. So it's important for organizations to know their exposure levels of information and contain the blast radius and ensure that there is a continuous least access privilege enforced around critical information.
Yeah, very well explained, Maheshwaran. So, with the escalating complexity of cyber threats, what are the prevailing challenges and trends in cybersecurity within the BFSI sector, particularly regarding data privacy, and how are financial institutions and customers adjusting their strategies?
Yeah, so I think probably the BFSI segment, normally is mostly regulated compared to other industry verticals, at least in India, right? So the regulators like RBI, IRDA, ensure that the banks and financial institutions are mandated to adhere to specific security controls. But I think this problem is getting compounded because again, mostly financial institutions, were hesitant to embrace digitization, but that's not the
Yes.
case right now, especially post COVID or even before COVID. Most of the financial institutions are okay now to look at having data on cloud. So, with this happening and banking, IT in banks being mandated to make information available to users, irrespective of where they are and from which device they access from, the attack surface again for protecting information is increasing for banks. And secondly, the regulations are becoming more and more stringent. So that's the constant pressure that the financial institutions are operating in. So I think
Yeah.
when it comes to maybe cybersecurity or in general privacy, I think banks have already started looking at revisiting their people, process, and technology controls, see whether they are relevant to their current state, because most of these investments happened maybe 3 to 5 years back, and they're just revisiting the investment that they've made in establishing effective people, process, and technology controls to check whether it's current. and there is a lot of consolidation happening. And I think, and based on our interactions with different financial institutions, they are getting geared up to meet this challenge, and probably one step ahead compared to other verticals in addressing this complex cybersecurity and privacy requirements. Nidhi.
Yeah, okay. So, according to you, what are the most effective strategies and technologies for enterprises to protect sensitive information as cyber threats are evolving currently in a rapid manner? And how do artificial intelligence and machine learning enhances these data protection measures?
Right. So the two most commonly used buzzwords in cybersecurity is maybe Gen AI or artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Yes.
Um, I think, like I said earlier at the beginning, uh, hackers, while they use different vectors to get into an organization, the motive is always to go after data. I mean, like the banking analogy. While the most the frauds typically in a bank happens around the most important asset that the hackers are interested, and the most important asset for the banks also, which is money. Similarly, I think more and more attacks are happening around information, and that's a motive for hackers, right? So while organizations have deployed a lot of threat-centric controls to defend against threats coming in from external domain to protect their critical information assets, but threats are always something that are controlled by hackers, right? So if I'm
Hmm.
really focused or motivated to get into an organization, I can come up with a new variant of a threat, bypass most controls that organizations have deployed, threat-centric controls that organizations have deployed, and I can still get access to critical information and take that information out. So that's where I
Yeah,
believe,
not information. Yes.
yeah, so that's where I believe it's critical for organizations to have as many controls around data, because data has become the new perimeter. And these for these controls to be effective, it's important for organizations to get answers to these three questions. And I think once they do that, they'll be in a much better state to enforce data protection controls. So the first question: do they know what information is sensitive and where all is it residing? It could sound to be a very simple question, but actually it's very complex, and organizations actually struggle to understand what all information is sensitive for them, and where all is that information residing. Are they on endpoints? Are they on mobile devices? Which cloud application? Which databases, etc. Secondly, are they sure that only right people have access to information with right permissions? I talked about the information overexposure problem. um, Normally about 40% of information is overexposed, and organizations don't have this visibility. So it's important for organizations to understand or associate people with data and see what all data can a specific department access, or if it's like say financial information, which all users and groups within the bank can access this financial information. It's important to get that visibility. The third
Yes.
most important thing is, are they monitoring how information is being used? I think this is critical, because if organizations start to monitor this, let me explain this with an example. The way Mahesh would engage with data at Varonis is going to be drastically different than how a hacker would use Mahesh's credentials and engaging with data, or a malware using Mahesh's credentials and engaging with data. So if organizations start to understand what is the typical information usage pattern of a user around data, then they can look at a lot of anomalies, and they can detect these anomalies faster and contain it much quickly, so that they are prevented from any significant impact that's happening because of a data breach. So that's the first part of it. I'll just summarize. It's important for organizations to know what data is important, where all is it residing, are only right people having information to with right permissions, and also
Yes.
see tracking information usage patterns. And in all these three areas, AI and ML have a significant role to play. Technology has evolved, which can help organizations to understand what information is sensitive automatically. Technologies can also, AI ML models can also learn what is the normal behavior of a user when it comes to engaging with data, and they can look at suspicious data access patterns and contain it, detect and contain it. And overexposure, like I said, if certain specific information types are overexposed, then again technologies have evolved to automatically remediate overexposure based on how information is being access is being provisioned in the past. So AML, AM, and ML can play a significant role in enhancing cybersecurity in general, and especially around data security, and to ease operational overheads in terms of helping organizations to enforce these controls. I'm sorry it was a long answer, but I hope I answered
No,
it.
no, no problem. Very well defined. And as you spoke about three major questions, can you
Yeah.
shed light on some of the evolving cyber threats?
Yeah. So the first one is sophistication. I think we are seeing attacks to be very, very sophisticated, and there is a lot of team effort happening from the hacking community. Like, say, while if there are multiple phases in an attack, I mean, let me state this with an example. Like somebody is trying to take user credentials of a specific user or a specific user group, and then compromising those credentials, implanting a malware, and then the malware now escalating privileges and taking data out. Now we are seeing hacking community collaborating, where for different phases they are just appointing specialists or different hacking groups, and each of them have got an SLA to make the attack possible and successful, and make it also happen quickly. So there is a lot of collaboration happening, a lot of sophistication because of the way innovation is happening with hacking. I mean, hackers are also using AI significantly to launch attacks in a targeted manner, launch attacks that look very realistic, and also execute attacks much faster. So sophistication is one thing that I think organization needs to be concerned. And
Yes.
and 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 the reason why this is critical is because since there is so much collaboration, so much innovation happening from the hacker community, the defenders also have to be very, very proactive, and they should be having controls to detect threats much faster and contain it before it creates a significant impact. So, I mean, while the techniques are different, while there are new threats coming in, but if I have to just summarize, I think I just want to highlight how collaborative the hacking community is, and how innovative they are in launching these attacks in the most sophisticated manner.
Yes, there's no such defined process, if we can say.
Right. Yeah. Now they are like adhering a proper process. I mean, it's like, I mean, I also was reading an article where it's like treated like a business. Hacking is treated like a business. They have
Yes,
numbers,
yes, yes.
they have targets. They have to just go and ensure that they achieve these targets. So a lot of innovation, collaboration, and sophistication are happening in the way the cyber threats are evolving.
Yes. So, Maheshan, what essential security measures should financial institutions adopt to protect their financial data amidst growing cyber threats within the BFSI sector? And how does these measures vary between personal devices and interactions with cloud-based financial services?
Right. I think that's again a great question. So what I'll do is, I mean, I'll broadly break this, I mean, processes or controls that financial institutions have to take in 5 different buckets. And this could be around cybersecurity or even privacy when it comes to protecting data. So the first part is information asset classification and labeling. So I think most regulations, like including RBI, IRDA, are asking financial institutions to accurately and effectively classify information. I think that becomes the most important element when it comes to enforcing data security, and this is the foundational element. So the first part is knowing what information is sensitive and ensuring that it's classified and labeled. The second part, once organizations do this, is to have effective access controls in place and ensuring that there is a zero trust model enforced around information. So, what I mean is, only authorized people are allowed to access information um, um, uh, with appropriate permissions, and they have to constantly identify the user, constantly authorize the user, and ensure that only right people are having access to critical information. So, that's the second
Okay.
part, which is most critical. The third one is data tracking. So when I say data tracking, how much information do they have? How much of them is stale? How much new regulatory information is getting created? From where are they creating this information? What is their supply chain? How are they sharing information in their supply chain? How are they acquiring information from supply chain? So all of this needs to be tracked, and technology is there, fortunately, for financial institutions to help them to track these data effectively. And once they track this information, then they'll be able to understand different processes that are dealing with data, how many processes are internal, how many processes are sharing this information externally, which all processes are allowing them to acquire information, especially if it's regulatory information from external domains, etc. So that the third part is data tracking. The fourth part is data centric alert detection and remediation. So most organizations have a very good SOC, which are pretty good in detecting maybe infra-centric threats. But now, but if you ask them how many data breaches do they think have happened in the last week, how many, if a user account is compromised or if a machine is compromised, what all files can this machine access or that particular user access. Most of the organizations do not have answers to it. So that's why I'm using this word data centric threat detection, because
Okay.
finally regulators ask organizations to report data breaches, within a specific duration. CERT, for instance, have said less than 6 hours. International regulations like GDPR, 72 hours. So organizations need to have or enhance their SOC framework to ensure that they are able to detect suspicious activity around data, predict breaches faster, and contain and alert it, or report it to the appropriate authorities as and when it happens. And also close the loop by learning from the incident and ensuring that such incidents do not happen in future. That's the fourth part. And the fifth part is engaging business to review information access entitlements. Some of the regulations, or guidelines ask financial institutions to review information access entitlements periodically. Most of them do it manually. It's prone for errors. So it's critical to engage business. Like, say, for instance, the focal point or the single point of contact from a finance department should be automatically notified to review access to finance information from various users within the bank. And they should be leveraging technology, so the finance department head can see who all have got access to financial information, what sensitive information is there with finance department, are they supposed to access that information or not, and if they
Yes.
don't, revoke access for that specific user. So I would say that broadly, around data security or privacy, it's critical for organizations to get these five different buckets. I'll quickly summarize: data identification, data access control, data tracking, data centric alerting and remediation, and access entitlement limits.
Okay, so as you explained these 5 pointers in a very comprehensive manner, according to you, how can enterprises regularly monitor their data to detect security incidents quickly? And what tools or practices should be in place to create an effective audit trail in the case of a data breach?
Right. So I think the most important thing, especially when it comes to detecting data-centric security incidents, is to monitor how data is being accessed. When I say how data is being accessed, what is the user doing with respect to data? Is it creating? Is he deleting a lot of data? Is he sharing a lot of data? Is he modifying a lot of data?
Yes.
So all user access activities around data needs to be comprehensively logged. And once organizations start doing that, then they also look at understanding what sort of data is the user accessing. Is it regulatory data? Is it intellectual property? Is it financial information? Is it HR information? Is it legal information? So it's important also for organizations to tag activities around information sensitivity. That's the second most important thing. And once they do this well, then there are tools and technologies in place that automatically learn what is the normal access pattern of a user. I'll explain this with an example. Like, say,
Okay.
Mahesh, I typically log in from India as a geography from three devices: my laptop, tablet, and my phone. I normally log into, like, say, Microsoft 365, accesses about 100 documents in a day. So that's my normal information access pattern. Now,
Yes.
suddenly, if organizations see that I'm logging from a different geography that I never logged on before, I'm logging in from machines that I normally don't log, I'm accessing data types that I've never accessed before, I'm suddenly deleting a lot of data. If ransomware is using my credentials, a lot of information is being encrypted within short duration. So all these are certain indicators that organizations can get if they monitor data access patterns and learn what's normal and what's suspicious. And once they do that, they'll be able to predict breaches before it creates a significant impact and contain it
Yes.
much faster.
Yeah, rightly said. So, lastly, with the rapid advancement of technology and the complexity of cyber threats, how can CISOs and CIOs stay informed about the best practices for data protection?
Yeah, I think collaboration is the key. There are a lot of avenues now where the CISOs and CIOs can collaborate. There are various forums, where they can be part of, and there's a lot of collaboration already happening. I think it's important for CISOs to be part of it and constantly engage to understand what's happening with their peers, what's happening in a specific domain, etc. Secondly, I think there are a lot of players like, say, DSCI. There are a lot of groups where these CIOs, CISOs can be part of. Not just
Yes.
CIOs, CISOs, generally anybody in security and IT can be a part of. And there's a lot of training there. There is a lot of communication happening around there. There's a lot of research happening around there, which I think these professionals have to keep
Yes,
constantly
yes.
get
Security
updated.
is a
That's
part of many security professionals or leadership positions, you can say, right now in
absolutely.
organizations. Yes.
Absolutely, and conferences like say, there's some good security conferences from Gartner, RSA Cybersecurity Conference. The various forums organize these conferences, and a lot of great sessions happen in terms of how cybersecurity is evolving, what needs to be done to protect it, etc. So I think it's very critical for organizations to collaborate and
Yes.
constantly keep upgrading their knowledge because it's happening on the other end. The hackers are doing it in a much organized way. So I think we have to just not work in silos, but work as a combined workforce so that we all are geared up to understand attacks, detect them faster, and contain them.
Today's innovation talk provided invaluable insights into cybersecurity's complex and evolving landscape. With his extensive experience and expertise, Maheshwaran highlighted the critical aspects of identifying and protecting data across various platforms to minimize exposure to cyber threats. He also emphasized the importance of adapting strategies to safeguard data privacy. Thank you for sharing your insights, which will inspire and inform our ongoing efforts to enhance data security and privacy in this digital age. Thank you so much.